In celebration to the new Genshin Impact 3.5 patch, I thought it would be nice to talk about some of the things that makes Venti so suspicious. But not only Venti, also linking to Celestia, maybe. Now, some of the information in this video is actually some things that I left out from my upcoming theory video. Hopefully, this gives you more context about what's going to be discussed in the theory video. So if you enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe for that theory video, okay? The story begins with Venti and why Venti is so sus. But why am I connecting Venti to Celestia? Here's my thoughts, right? The idea is that the very first Archon that we met when we started the game is Venti, obviously, right? He's really sus because we know that he likes to hide information from us. Whether he's doing that on purpose or not, we don't know. But he is undoubtedly the first Archon that we meet in the game. You guys seen this, right? This text on the statue of Venti in Mondstadt. You guys know what I'm talking about here, right? This is nothing new. People have uncovered this a while ago. It says, but you have to read it backwards. Gateway of Celestia. If you read it forward like a normal person, you get So why is that written there specifically in Mondstadt and specifically in regards to Venti? My thought was because the context of the entire game of Genshin Impact is revolving around the cycle of life or cycle or pattern or samsara. Mondstadt being the starting point of the traveler's journey, I have this weird gut feeling that because of, in lieu of this, the story of the game might just end in Mondstadt. And I don't know if this has anything to do with it, right? This is kind of copium. Does that not look like a clock to you? Almost like a sundial that we've seen at Thousand Winds Temple and that interesting nameless island. We know that clocks go clockwise, but this is written in a counterclockwise fashion. On top of this, if you take a look, the shadow of this, because of the way it's positioned and because of the position of the sun, it actually travels almost like a sundial, but backwards as well, which is also strange. Now, it's not like a perfect loop because sundials aren't meant to be a perfect loop, or it's moondials for that matter. The moondial that we see in the Thousand Winds Temple and the Nameless Island, if you go look at them, they actually turn clockwise. But for some reason, if this was anything to do with the clock, it turns counterclockwise, the shadow. The whole point is, maybe this has nothing to do with anything, but I feel like under the context of this cycle or samsara that is so apparent in this game, there's a loop and the journey of the traveler will ultimately end in Mondstadt, just like how it started in Mondstadt. Now, speaking of Mondstadt and Celestia, did you ever feel like Celestia was watching her every move throughout her journey? An obvious invasion of our privacy, which brings us to the sponsor of this video, Surfshark VPN. Without a doubt, our privacy is extremely important when we play our favorite video games. Surfshark VPN is a virtual private network that keeps us safe from the cyber criminals and overlords from the internet, protecting us from the malicious activities and keeping our personal data safe throughout the day. But honestly, the best part about having a VPN is the ability to change a virtual location to access region block content on services like Netflix without leaving the comfort of my home, which is honestly really cool for me personally because I've had issues with watching foreign movies and shows from across the globe. Not only that, but it's like having a digital fairy that gives us real-time alerts to protect our data and even comes with a virus protection for our devices. Now, if you use my code ISLANDXD, you'll be able to get 83% off plus 3 extra months for free. And really, it's worth a try because the Surfshark offers 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's really no risk in trying out the service. If you're interested, make sure to click the link in the description of this video. Check it out, check it out, check it out. Again, thank you to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. And let's get back to why Venti is so suspicious. I'm sure you've heard of this, right? If we go into Venti's story, this is how he introduces himself, and this was so sus. It was always sus, but just listen to it for a second.
Ah, Traveler, we meet again. What? You don't remember me? Well, allow me to join you on your quest once again.
This voice line, it always gave me an idea of few options. Number one, we met Venti before, but our memories got screwed up. That's one option. Number two, there's a time loop, right? And number three, he is referring to not us, but he is referring to our Abyss sibling. Which, in your opinion, is the most likely outcome here? But the thing is, what are we talking about when it comes to time loop? Are we talking about reverting time? Or are we talking about samsara? These two things are actually different. Reverting time is like time traveling to the past, but samsara means the same thing, the time continues on, but the same thing just repeats itself non-stop. From the context from the game so far, it seems like instead of going back to the past, the more likely case is that it's something to do with samsara. Judging from the poll, it seems that 1 and 2 is actually what people think is the most likely case. Venti is probably not affected by the Ermin. So that's an interesting idea because even though Nahida forgot memories because of the Ermin soul and information being redacted, she was still able to retain at least some portions of the past using fairy tales. Venti kind of mimics that similar regard because even though, let's say, he forgot some things, he still remembers some happenings of the past because he's a bard. If you write it into song and poetry, they seem to like retain because it's very cryptic to begin with. It doesn't get erased by the Ermin soul. So maybe the reason why Venti remembers a lot of things that others maybe wouldn't is because of how he retains the past, the stories of the past through the songs and poetry. Here's another thing about Venti that I found very suspicious when I was working on the video. As I already mentioned, there's 3 moon sisters, right? We got Arya, we got Sonnet, and then we got Kanon. After doing some research for the theory, I realized I come to this weird and interesting situation. If you break down the meanings behind these words, names basically, they all point to different things, but they all co-align with Venti. It's very strange. They're all related to some form of music or literature. This is the definition of sonnet. Basically, TLDR, what it is it's basically, in terms of music, it is a poetry, a form of poetry or music. And it's related to drama, it's related to folklore, fable, legend, myth, oral literature, proverbs, poetry, lyrics, narrative, short story. In my mind, it boils down to a couple things: stories, tales, and then poetry, right? Now, when you get to see my video, there's a reason why, even though this is very indicative of Venti, I specifically not only give credit to Venti for the word sonnet, but it's also interestingly related to Nahida. As for why, of course, that will be explained in the theory video, but the idea is that sonnet is also connected to Venti. And then when we look up Kanon, is to imitate, mimic, or repeat a certain thing under a certain duration. Now, when I read this, and under the context of what we previously talked about earlier, with the whole Venti and the cycle, and perhaps like, you know, getting back to Mondstadt at the end of the story, it's a cycle. It's a cycle of repetition. The word Kanon is basically a cycle of repetition under a given duration. It's almost like a idea of samsara, perhaps, that we mentioned previously, which also connects to Venti, strangely. And then Arya, a self-contained piece of music for one voice, which we already mentioned a while back. The intro song for the login screen is Dream Arya, right? But if you just in English, Arya basically just means air. So again, it's connecting to Venti. This is where I was like, why is the 3 moon sisters linked to Venti? Still can't figure out why, and I've been trying to figure out for the longest time. Fun fact, Arya are the most emotional piece in opera. It's the moment when we can see the real wishes, aspirations, and dreams of the characters. Interesting. There's this one video I can't seem to brush off because it's always been on my mind. You guys might have already seen this information, but for the mystery, born from the branches of time. I don't know why, but I am having the suspicion that Venti is so directly close to Nahida for whatever reason, because Ventis is born from the branches of time, and Nahida was born from branches of memory. I don't know why they're connected, but they seem connected. Time and memory is also connected to the Ermin soul, because like it's all connected also with Easteroth too, because time is Easteroth, but memories, if you go back to A's Story Quest 2, it's Easteroth, but within the memories of Makoto, it's just so strange. I'm assuming Nahida is very closely tied to Easteroth because of the concept of time, because of dream and samsara and all that stuff, which goes back to Makoto and A, which goes back to Venti because of wind and time. And then I think, only if we dig enough, I think he's also directly related. We won't know exactly how or why, but Venti, I'm sure everybody's known this for a while, Venti's so sus, and he holds so many keys or pieces of the puzzle for the story, but none of that is actually going to come out until we go through the entirety of the region, entirety of the story. Venti's just sus. Maybe the Windbloom with the new 3.5 patch, maybe we'll get some hints. If you have any thoughts about all this, let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time, okay?